the ones who notice what the room missed. There is a particular kind of person you have probably met at least once in your life. They walk into a conversation and pick up on something no one else caught. They read a situation before it unfolds. They see the crack in the story, the tension under the smile, the pattern hiding inside the noise, and they see it quietly, almost involuntarily, as if the information simply arrives in them unbidden. Most people around them don't notice, and that gap between what this person perceives and what everyone else does is one of the most psychologically fascinating spaces in all of human cognition. It is not that they are smarter, it is that they are tuned to a different frequency, one most people never learn to hear. This is not about conspiracy theorists or contrarians. It is not about arrogance or the performance of being deep. What we're talking about today is a genuine, neurologically and psychologically grounded difference in how certain people process reality, why they see what others don't, what it costs them, and what it quietly gives the world. By the end of this, you will either recognize yourself or finally understand someone in your life who has always seemed to be living on a slightly different plane than everyone else. 7 dimensions of a mind that sees differently. They process depth, not just surface. The foundational trait underlying nearly all forms of unusual perception is what psychologists call depth of processing. While most people process incoming information efficiently, skimming the top layer of a situation and moving on, certain individuals process every layer almost simultaneously. They notice the micro-expression that contradicts the words. They register the pause that lasted half a second too long. They feel the emotional temperature of a room shift before anyone has spoken. This is not magical thinking. It is the brain doing what it was always capable of doing, just refusing to stop at the surface. Research on highly sensitive people and deep thinkers consistently shows that this depth of processing is not a choice. It is a default mode of the nervous system, one that is metabolically costly, often exhausting, and almost impossible to turn off. Pattern recognition beyond the norm. One of the most documented cognitive gifts in people who see more is an exceptional ability to identify patterns across time, across contexts, and across domains that seem completely unrelated to each other. The neuroscience here is revealing. Minds wired for pattern recognition form unusual connections between stored experiences, allowing them to pull signals from one area of life and apply them to another. The chess grandmaster who reads the board 12th moves ahead. The analyst who spots the market anomaly everyone else dismissed. The friend who said something's off about a person months before everyone else agreed. What looks like intuition to the outside world is, at its core, pattern recognition operating faster than conscious thought. These people aren't guessing. They are computing, just beneath the level of language. Divergent thinking, the mind that refuses one answer. Most cognitive problem-solving follows a convergent path. Narrow down the possibilities until you reach the single correct answer. People who see what others don't tend to operate in the opposite direction. They think divergently, spreading outward, holding multiple possibilities simultaneously, resisting the comfortable closure of a single conclusion. Psychologist J.P. Guilford first distinguished convergent from divergent thinking in the 1950s, and decades of research since have confirmed that high divergent thinkers generate more original, more unexpected, and often more accurate interpretations of ambiguous situations. The cost is real. The divergent thinker can seem indecisive, complicated, or exhausting to those who prefer simple answers. But the gift is equally real. They see the angles that the convergent mind has already ruled out. Emotional intelligence as a perceptual tool. For many people who see what others don't, the primary instrument of perception is not logic, it is emotion. High emotional intelligence is not simply about being kind or empathetic. At its perceptual peak, it is a form of data collection that operates in real time, reading the emotional states of others with the precision of a finely calibrated instrument. Psychologist Paul Ekman's research on microexpressions, involuntary facial movements lasting less than a fifth of a second, showed that certain individuals can be trained to read them with remarkable accuracy. But some seem to arrive already trained. They don't know how they know someone is lying, hiding pain, or quietly terrified. They simply know. and they are usually right. This is emotional perception as a cognitive skill, and it allows these individuals to navigate human situations with an accuracy that can feel, to others, almost unsettling. The shadow side, the burden of seeing too much. It would be dishonest to discuss this psychology only as gift. People who perceive at this depth carry a weight that rarely gets spoken about directly. They see the contradictions in people they love and must decide whether to name them or protect the relationship. They feel the dissonance between what is said and what is true, and must learn to hold that dissonance in silence. They observe systems, organizations, and social structures lurching toward avoidable disasters, and discover, often painfully, that pointing this out before it happens earns suspicion, not gratitude. Cassandra was given the gift of prophecy and the curse that no one would believe her. Many people who see what others don't live in a quiet version of that myth every single day. The loneliness of this perception is one of its least discussed dimensions. It is not that these people are misunderstood because they are difficult. It is that the gap between what they see and what others are ready to see creates a distance that is genuinely hard to bridge. Metacognition, thinking about thinking. Another defining trait is unusually high metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe one's own thought processes while they are happening. Most people think. These people watch themselves think, question their assumptions mid-thought, and course-correct before the conclusion has even formed. This creates a kind of built-in error correction system, where the average thinker accepts their first interpretation of a situation. The metacognitive mind immediately asks, "What am I missing? What am I assuming? What would this look like from the opposite angle?" It is this habit of self-questioning that keeps their perception honest, and it is also what makes them the first to say, with genuine humility, "I could be wrong," because they have already considered the ways they might be. The long view, perceiving time differently. Finally, there is the dimension of time. People who see what others don't tend to live with an unusually long cognitive horizon. While most decision-making is anchored in the immediate, what is happening now, what feels true today, these minds are simultaneously running projections forward and backward, reading the present through the lens of what came before and what is likely to come next. This is why they often seem to predict things that turn out to be accurate, not because they are prescient, but because they are integrating more temporal data than most people consciously access. The present moment, for them, is never just the present. It is a point in a long, living pattern, and that ability to situate the present inside a larger arc of time is, perhaps, the deepest form of seeing that exists. What the world owes the ones who always noticed. Throughout history, the people who changed how we understand reality were almost never the majority. They were the ones who saw the heliocentric truth while the rest of the world was certain the sun moved. They were the ones who felt the wrongness of a diagnosis years before the evidence caught up. They were the ones who read the fault lines in a culture, a company, a relationship, and held that knowledge alone, often for years, before the world arrived at the same conclusion. We do not build monuments to perception. We rarely even name it. But the quality of nearly every meaningful human advance, scientific, moral, artistic, relational, has depended on someone who was willing to keep seeing what others weren't ready to see, and to hold that vision without validation, sometimes for a very long time. The world does not run on the average perception. It pivots on the rare ones, the people who look at what everyone else looked at and simply see something more. If you are one of these people, this is not a comfortable identity to carry. It asks something of you: patience with those who aren't ready, humility about the ways you might still be wrong, and the quiet courage to trust your perception even when the room disagrees. And if you know one of these people, if there is someone in your life who always seemed to notice what you missed, who said things that felt strange and then turned out to be true, who was perpetually a few steps ahead and perpetually a little lonely for it, perhaps the most important thing you can do is simply this: tell them you see them. Because the great irony of the people who see what others don't is that they spend so much of their lives being the ones who go unseen. They gave the world their vision. The least the world can offer in return is its attention. Some people are not ahead of their time. They are simply awake inside it, watching the rest of us slowly open our eyes.